The moment this life is entered, suffering starts. And this is happening not only to humans, but also to all other living beings, including plants. We always forget the plants. For humans, pain starts also earlier than is usually assumed, not at the birth, but already during prenatal development. And this pain is moving like a wave throughout the life, from one to another high point, with different amplitudes and frequencies, but certainly it will rise, grow, and crush into shore of life many times. And this is the same for everyone. Indeed, each life form in a course of own development will constantly encounter obstacles. And these obstacles could be from chemical, hormonal changes, from expansion of the physical body, where bones are growing and muscles are developing and extending, to pain that is caused by impulses that are received through sense organs, like high or low temperature, strong light, and different other. Obstacles could be also in form of the resources that living forms need for their expansion. That means food, shelter, or reproductive partner. When we observe from a distance, we can realize that so many obstacles that life had put on our path, we already have passed and conquered. Some of these obstacles had been leaving deeper wounds, and some are passed with easiness. In general, we are like alive warriors that keep going from one to another battle. Some battles are leaving huge scars, some other not. While some people may engage in huge wars, some others may run away as soon as battle starts. But regardless what strategy one chooses, the battles will keep coming even if you don't like it. The problem starts when people start focusing on that single point, that battles will come over again. By constantly focusing and expecting the new obstacles and new wars and new battles, the fear that battle is awaiting us on each corner, or a fear of being unprepared for battle, and so end up in a pain, is growing. And that fear makes some people focusing exclusively on obstacles that are going to happen in the future. To prevent being hurt when approaching obstacles, they start shaping their weapons and preparing for the combat to such extent that they engage in fights even when fight was not necessary and could be easily escaped. Some other people choose hiding strategy. They stop living, and because of that, they stop growing and developing, and often spend most of their time in self-pity. And there are also people who focus on life and not on the battles, who try to conquer on fear, who learn through each wound, and with this they get more wisdom, what helps them to see which battles can be escaped in the future and which need to be taken up. They mostly go through the life storms with integrity and dignity, and once they pass them, they will feel gratitude for surviving. They will carry their scars with pride and as a sign of personal strength and success, not a shame and not a self-pity. Because all these scars are just that, medals for getting through life obstacles and surviving it. When we reflect on our past obstacles, we can realize their value and also that they had been necessary for our happiness. As harder the path, as harsher the obstacles, the more satisfying is accomplishment that led over it. If you happen to hike the mountain, you may experience hardship getting to the summit. From physical pain to mental or emotional challenge. But once you reach the highest point, all this energy of pain transforms in incredible happiness. You realize that you did confront the mountain, but you actually have conquered yourself. You grow in this process, on this path up, and your spirit has been expanding during this period. Feeling of being strong enough to get over all what was on our way, to get over our fear, impatience, insecurity, physical and mental pain. All of this is giving us proof that we can accomplish everything else and that we can, in principle, climb every mountain. However, some people focus only on hardship that they have endured during this climb. They see the life as the line with endless issues, problems, and pain. But without realizing the role of obstacles and growing process that is triggered by each of it, one can neither climb high mountains, nor will be able to reach the summit and experience limitless joy. People who see obstacles without understanding the nature of it have usually feeling that their life is useless, that everyone is against them, including life itself. And even though each person is born with a different karmic load, where some can truly be hard to break and will drive big obstacles, each of this is opportunity and not barrier. But it is also wrong to believe, like some people do, that if you keep thinking positively, you will not encounter obstacles in life and all will flow smoothly. Obstacles will always be the part of the life process. Positive thinking has certainly some benefits, but liberation from obstacles is not one of those. Some obstacles cannot be directly prevented by individual efforts, like natural catastrophes or human-made catastrophes such as war. And here, be aware of word directly. Some other obstacles cannot be always prevented, such changes in health, natural development of physical body, relationships, social political situation, the family in which you are born, and many others. And then there are obstacles that can be largely prevented. These are obstacles that are created by our own mind. Mind is creating overly complex stories and scenarios jumps back and forth from past events, memories, future predictions, and again to the start. From assumptions to projections, from editing memories to creating non-existing memories. Since people identify strongly with such thinking mind, all problems that arise out of its activity seems to be huge and is very often the only obstacle that we have. We have to recognize that some challenges in our life are amplified and are getting huge weight only because of accompanied mind activity that suggests terrible scenarios, overcomplicates situation, or interprets something as obstacle even though it is not. And we have to recognize that exactly this mind activity prevents us very often from solving the problem, or preventing us from solving a problem without a huge pain. For example, on our path towards social positioning in the world, we have to absolve decades of schooling. Each of these schools require not only effort in memorizing some information, but also being able to recall this memorized information at the right time, at the right extent. And this is, of course, tested during exams. If we stay present and allow our intellectual mind to focus and to bring attention to the subject we are studying, it will perform good. But very often, the mind drifts into assumptions and scenarios, projecting the future, projecting our unfavorable exam performance. What raises fear and blocks our potential to focus on the material that we have to study, prevent us to perform, or we end up being overly excited, convinced by mind that we already know it all, what again can bring unfavorable results. So when we drift out from the present moment and allow mind to bring us into its own world, into its own projection and scenarios, we will either start suffering already prior to exam due to fear of failure, or we will suffer after the exam when we fail because our mind was projecting overly positive scenarios. The same is true for all other aspects in our life. When we are interviewed for a new job, when we approach a new relationship or any social group, and many more. This type of suffering is caused by unconscious or conditioned mind, which is basically driving us into its own world, locking us within our heads and distancing us from the present moment, from the life. Regardless what is the cause of our suffering, if there would be no suffering, there would be no impulse and no trigger that can move us to wish to be liberated, to get on into the path toward the liberation. Without pain, without suffering, we would simply remain in a state which feels comfortable, in our comfort zone. Only when energy of feelings rise and become so strong and powerful that we can't stand it any longer, we are able to break through the conditioning and to wake up. All the people usually assume that all pain and suffering is caused by some outside actor or event, and there are some causes that are seemingly external. For example, when we stand on a sidewalk and car runs directly into us and we end up with a broken spine, or suffering caused by death of the person that we love, that is close to us. Even such life events that suddenly become obstacle in our life are causing suffering largely because of our mind. So again, event is external, maybe external, but the suffering is always internalized. It's always our mind process. So to follow that previous example, in a moment of accidents, when we lay on the ground, we don't suffer. We feel pain after shock passes, but then mind starts bringing the thoughts such as stupid driver or am I going to walk again? And all of this pull up emotions of fear or anger, what triggers additional mind activities, creating dialogues and monologues and scenarios and pictures. Simply a drama pops up. This is the moment when suffering actually surfaces and takes over. So the only way to prevent this flood of thoughts and emotions at such moments is simply by taking what has happened as it is. So staying in a moment, staying in a presence, without questioning such why me, if I would, without blaming, without bringing others in to the whole picture. Because all of that will pull us into the swamp of self-pity. So in principle, whenever something happens, no matter how painful it is, we should consider it as it is only because of us. Because in principle, it is only about us. Our life brought us into a situation to learn something, to get a step forward, to understand life deeper. So we should take it as an opportunity. And of course, hearing something like that, when indulging a pain of suffering or being in terrible situation, feels uncompassionate and can create in the listener a wave of anger and sadness and frustration, which is caused by ego that is strengthened through self-pity. So no matter how big consequence can be, we will only suffer to the degree we reject or deny the situation in which we are. For that reason, we need to learn how to accept the moment as it is. Every moment, completely, with everything what is in, regardless if you like it or not, if it hurts or not. Some people are getting through life with less drastic lessons, have less karmic load, yet everyone is getting through suffering that is part of the natural flow. This form that we are, this body, is deteriorating with age, and this aging body, all this natural process, it will bring certain amount of pain, illness, mental or intellectual decline. However, this can cause suffering only if you are attached to the body. And even then, when the pain of the declining aging body or ill body is rising over the threshold that our neural system can endure, even then the suffering starts only with our increased mental activity. Before that, we just have the pain, even if that is the pain that is hard to endure. It is just a pain. If you take each moment as it is, with everything what is in, suffering may not surface, but a people who are close to us and who are watching our pain may have a hard time seeing it. So our pain can become a trigger for their suffering. So this suffering that is triggered in others by watching our pain is their own suffering, which is caused by their own triggers, their own mind, their own thoughts process, or triggered emotions. So basically we cry after someone dies because of us, because we're left alone. We cry because of illness of another person, because we reflect this illness on us. We compare with pain that we would feel in that situation. We cry in a movie because we reflect some scenes in a movie with our personal fears and life experiences. We cry when we read the stories and books because of the same. It is all about us and our mind work. Saying that, it's important as well to understand that we are actors in the suffering, that we have to drop this victim status and to stop maintaining self-pity, to stop complaining, and start instead accepting moment by moment. Because playing a victim role is a game of our ego that separates ourselves from everything else. And it's putting itself in the centrum, demanding from everything and everyone that is apparently outside to comfort and to please him. And people get annoyed or hurt when hearing that their ego is driving them into a state of self-pity. They like to hear confirmations that they really suffer. They do suffer. And this is the place where the pure compassion should play the role, but not self-pity and not pityness. It is important to understand that ego is just a construct, an entity that we identify with. We believe that we are this ego. Ego tries to be fixed and robust, and everything what is attacking that fixed state is considered as the danger. By identifying ourselves with our ego, we start believing that suffering of the ego is something what cannot be changed, that people remains the same entire life. But indeed, it is possible to change. It is possible to cease suffering and pain. And for this is sufficient just to stop nourishing our ego with the thoughts such, it is always happening to me and why me? I can't get anything what I want. Everyone is happier than me. Once these inner monologues and dialogues are dropped, the ego starts weakening, and this allows you to see that actually every life form encounters obstacles, that is not only you, and that each of these obstacles is there because it's necessary to be there, because without it, there would be no progress, no evolution, no expansion. So realizing that is going to be enough, that pain of suffering disappears and that obstacles turn to be opportunity in our perspective. So by accepting obstacles, we get more and more conscious, and that drives again more acceptance, what again brings our learning process through each obstacle that crosses our path much faster. We basically open to life. We start truly living, and suffering loses grasp of us, loses power over us, and finally ceases. However, the obstacles will be still there, but they would be like a play, like a challenge that can be addressed without fear. A challenge for which solution our full capacity can be used, including our mind. And this is the point where our mind stops creating suffering for us and stop controlling us, and instead take its natural role, helping us solve the situations.